Kim.
Hi, Kino. How are you?
I'm okay, and yourself?
I'm doing extraordinary. To see you.
That's cool. Well, I'm okay. I've had a bit of flu this week, so I've been dealing
Oh,
with that as
bummer.
well.
There's something going around.
Yeah. There's definitely something going around. Plus, we've just entered like our winter months here in South Africa, and it's like extremely cold. So that in the
You're in South
mix, has
Africa,
made life
though.
extremely uncomfortable. Yeah, but
But you're in the place that
yeah,
I dream of traveling to. So,
is it?
yes. In fact, in 2028, I'm planning on running the South African Marathon there.
Nice. So you enjoy running. I
I
know you
do.
enjoy exercise. I know
I do.
that. So
Yeah.
like running at the top of the list.
Yeah. Running has been like a lifeline for me. So it's
Yeah.
just and not running through multiple pregnancies, like, because I don't run while pregnant. I'm like just itching to get back in. So I'm super excited.
I know that itch. With me personally at the moment, like I used to have time to exercise
Mm.
on a regular basis, and then lifestyle just changed, and now that, I got guests now on the podcast in different time zones. So it's always late in South Africa.
Yeah.
And then, the next morning I've got to be up, early anyway, to deal with all the daily tasks ahead in my life, and then when it
Mhm.
comes night again, it's the podcast again. So I'm trying to get enough sleep, still have enough time to exercise in the morning, but it's just been like a complete mess for me. Like I'm still trying to get to like a stable schedule, you know, and I was
Tell me
like
about
so brilliant at
it.
time management once upon a time.
I think it's also,
Do you
it's
have
like,
any tips and tricks on that?
oh gosh, like I think my friend, like I have a 7 week, she's 8 weeks old baby right now. So
Yeah,
sleep is happening, but like few and far between. I have my two other children that are 7 and 3. And so like, and so just we're like, and just being able to actually move my body and get back after my first 40 days of like pregnancy and recovery and after giving birth. So one of the biggest things that I see is actually just allowing for yourself to have grace. Like, I think it's great for those for all the personal development books and tips that are like, go out there and grind at 5 a.m. I'm like, my baby just went to sleep 3 hours ago. So grinding at 5 a.m. is not going to happen for me. And I think one of the things with productivity that I think gets misconstrued is productivity is intimately tied with courage. And we have this illusion that it's the amount of time to how productive we can be, when actually it's like our time is relative to our efficiency. And so not always do you need a 90-minute workout. You could get in like a really strong 15-minute HIIT workout and then be able to go about your day. I think it's just finding that balance. For me, I had to, I'm normally a morning workouter, but since my baby girl is just, not like she's asleep, and then I end up working from like 10 a.m. to 2, just kind of admin and do all the wrap up and things for my businesses. I'm like, okay, well, this is where life is at this moment. And I think there's a level of acceptance that has to come with this season of life that you're in.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. Like we can never really pin it down, like how you do it or your lifestyle will definitely be different to my lifestyle and the next person. So just you have to go through this process, as you said, in that season, and evaluate, okay, what's going to work best. It does get overwhelming. I'm not going to lie, I'm being like fully transparent. Like for me, it's just like overwhelming, and I just have to adapt to it some
Mm-hmm.
way, somehow. Not everyone's time is going to work according to my time. So I have to adapt to that to accommodate, the next person to make this work. So it's come to a point where it's like, okay, each week is like a new week, Then I think, okay, no, maybe it's going to work out like this for me this week. It doesn't, it doesn't. So
Yeah,
it
it
is,
has to come down to prioritizing it, because like for me, if it's not prioritized, and I when I feel my body is in that space where it's like, oh, we need to exercise, because like that's a space that I know is, it will help with my mental health. It helps with anxiety. It
yeah,
helps with
yeah,
with all the things, and just helps me be a more present parent, as well as a more present coach and business owner for my companies and for my clients. If I know that that's allowing me to show up at my best, and I'm happy, like, and my husband will fully support when I'm like, I need you to take the baby because I'm going to do 30 minutes of exercise. He's like, great, awesome. So it's just doing that. It's allowing for the dance, and also asking for what you need in the support, because I think you cannot give from an empty cup. And when I look at the habits and practices and go deep into the why, it's like, why is exercise so important to me? I'm like, at the very, core foundation, it just allows me to show up better for every role that I play in my world.
yeah. It's not just about having, abs or slender
Yeah.
body. What you said there, mental health. It helps you mentally, besides physically. Mentally is key component to it.
Yeah. I mean, I
Also
work with
sleep,
predominantly
enough
people on
sleep.
mindset. Yeah, and
Yeah,
when we think of
no,
mindset,
100%.
I think there's a little bit of a lag. When we work with mindset, like a lot of people think it's, positive thinking and journaling and all that stuff. And I'm like, yes, and your physical body directly impacts how your mind is thinking. So if your physical body is processing mold toxicity, or if it's processing, if it's feeling lethargic, or if it's feeling bloated and like disgusting and nasty, and you're like, I haven't exercised in months, then moving your body, just the very act of moving your body, can shift your mental state.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you focus so much on how a person can self-sabotage themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So not doing certain things that you know is going to benefit you and you actually enjoy doing, like you enjoy exercising, you also find yourself in a space of self-sabotage because you're like feeling bad. Oh no, I didn't exercise, or I never meditate. I'm not taking care of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
now, again, you focus on people's story. That becomes your story. And this is like personal, for me. Like this
Yeah.
actually happens to me as well, and
Yeah.
it's bad.
It happens to the best. Like, it happens to every high performance coach for every season of life, because things like the one constant that we will always experience in our lifetime is change. Circumstances
Yeah,
change, work situations change, careers change, families dynamics change. I mean, even if you just change into becoming into a relationship, if that person that you're just starting out that new fresh hot relationship with doesn't exercise, and you were spending so much time like together, then your habits are going to shift and start mirroring that, until you realize
um,
and claim that for yourself as far as what you need and what your body needs. And so
yeah,
these little bits of self-sabotage, they come in a lot when we're judging ourselves, and when that inner critic can start just playing that B-roll in the back of our mind of like, just all of those things that we learned from childhood, or we thought we learned from our caregivers and things like that. And thus that those judgments start to become our identity. And when we're messing with our identity, and if fitness and health and exercise is not part of our identity, then, because we're so used to judging it, then that's where we come into a misalignment.
yeah, yeah. No, everything you have been saying so far makes so much sense to me. It's for us to benefit as well. And I'm sure there's, listeners out there who are going through the same, with their growth in their personal life, because this is all part of growth. And with growth comes these pains, and we just have to learn to deal with it, in that moment, in that season. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Of
I'm not
course.
sure if I thanked you already, for reaching out to the podcast, but it's such an awesome pleasure to have you here. You were actually, like, I mean, I could have easily, sent another email to say, hey, Kim, I'm not feeling well today. Can we postpone? And then I went on to watch your TEDx speech again. And I just want to say, wow, that was so emotional, so real, so authentic. And it was like, okay, Kino, you're going to jump onto this podcast today. You're going to have this conversation because when you were like, you got the flu and you like, and today I decided to just like stay in bed the whole day. This is the first productive task, I've done for today, you know, and then you on medication as well, and you like find yourself in this dark space and you thinking, because it's the medication also, playing its role in this whole thing.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, let me jump onto this conversation, have a positive conversation with Kim, because that's also going to uplift my mood. And look, already, I'm smiling and I'm laughing. So thank you. Thank you
You're
for
very
that.
welcome. I'm so glad that, like, I'm hoping that by the end of this conversation, you'll be like so uplifted that
Yeah.
all forms of the dis-ease will be alleviated.
And it just shows you the
Yes.
power of having positive conversations, that, it's so good for your well-being. It's not just about, medication, go to the doctor, but just that daily positive interactions with individuals, like-minded individuals, people that actually boost your self-esteem and confidence actually plays a huge role, And as you said, I'm hoping, at the end of this conversation, I'm like, yes, I'm back to me, even though I'm, not saying I should rush into it tomorrow, but like, be in a better space than I
there
was when I
is
woke
a
up.
compassion that I think needs to come with high performance as well. Like, and I'm the first to say I did not have this, and I still struggle with this, especially coming out of 40 days of being completely sedentary, in healing postpartum, and just allowing for those 40 days to just be with my daughter, be served by my husband and my mom, and allow for like them to take care and surrendering control so I can just be in the role of like facilitating and serving my daughter. It was like coming out of that, I'm like, I feel squishy. Like I don't feel as like strong as I normally do. And so like, and we have those moments, and because it's life. Like we have those moments when when we feel down, and when we get sick, and when someone has the sniffles. And there is a power to showing up, and there's also a power to giving grace and to resting. So I think a lot of times with high performers, we will be especially my high achievers out there, like we will be the ones that will like power through. But I think there has to come with the power, the power of showing up has to come with a level of intentionality. And if we're just forcing to force because of some external shoulds of belief systems of like, I have to show up because if I don't, my audience will think this, this, and this, or I'm not going to make as much money, or all of these like limiting beliefs, then probably actually the better thing for you to do, the more courageous thing to do, because productivity is intimately tied with courage, is actually to rest. It's actually to cancel your appointments. It's actually to say, hey, I need to rest right now and really honor this space of where I'm at. And simultaneously, on the other side, though, if you catch yourself making those excuses and just allowing yourself to rest a lot and saying, okay, am I resting so much that I'm backing down from my commitments where I'm showing up? One, do I need to reevaluate my commitments? Do I need to like really look at what my priorities are right now for this season? Because maybe you are going through a health crisis. Like for those that are going through something longer than the flu, that is like a more long, a health challenge, like maybe that is something that you actually need to reprioritize and say, you know what, I'm going to put all my attention on this instead of focusing on doing all of these other things that I've had as a priority. So it's a dance of intention, of really being able to look and have the self-awareness and discernment to say, is this coming from a place, is my performance coming from a place of force, and do I need to give myself grace, or is my lack of performance coming from either a need to restructure my priorities or a need to evaluate my commitments and why I'm doing what I'm doing? So it's yes and both for everything.
Yeah. Now, what you said there, self-awareness, sometimes you can find yourself procrastinating, but it's so like subconscious. You don't even know you're doing it, because you don't really want Americans want to do what you're supposed to do. So why are you doing it anyway? What's the why behind it? What's the end goal of why you're there? 100%. Thank you. See, I love this.
Yes.
Kim, you carry so many successful hats. You're a successful entrepreneur, you're a best-selling author, you're a great coach, you're a mom, you're a wife. You're the type of person where the universe throws a challenge at you, you overcome it. If the universe throws a punch at you, you're punching back and you punch it back harder. Let's start off
Right
with
in the face.
what's your story? I know you got a long story, but sum it up, because I want listeners, even for me personally, to get to know you on that personal, intimate level. What's your story summed up? How did you get from trauma to successful?
So I had to rewrite my story of being a victim multiple times. And I on the outside, I grew up and everything looked pretty okay. My dad, though, was a highly functioning alcoholic, and I faced multiple forms of different abuse in that space. And yet he also was my greatest positive, powerful influence for success and for entrepreneurship. He had one of the best money mindsets I've ever encountered. He just had such a trust and faith, but he just really deeply struggled with internal demons. And so growing up in that environment, if you've ever grown up with an addict, there's a trauma test that you can take. It's called, I'm blanking on it. My pregnancy brain is baby brain is firing, but it's I think it's called the ACE test. And it looks at all your childhood trauma and it gives you a score. And if you score over a 4, you are highly predisposed to have anxiety and depression later on in life. And my score is an 8 out of 10, based on the experiences that I had. I saw my dad get arrested. I saw just multiple experiences. And actually, when he passed in 2021, I had so much compassion because he also was a child of abuse. And he didn't have the coping mechanisms or the tools or the resources that I'd equipped myself over the past 10 years, so that by the time he passed, I understood how I could process and deal with grief and the grief that comes with having a complex relationship with a parent that you love, but may have been treated poorly by, or a parent that you love and wanted their respect, but maybe you never got it. And that passing is a challenge. And that was one that I definitely struggled with in these past couple of years. But back to where I was and growing up on the streets of suburbia, I started selling in entrepreneurship at 5, selling bags of glitter water, thanks to growing up as a second generation entrepreneur. That was very encouraged. My parents knowing how entrepreneurial I was and how much of a self-starter I was, and because they were the first generation entrepreneurs themselves, they fully supported me when I said, I want to go into show business. I want to write movies. They were like, great, we'll take your college fund that we saved for you. Take that. And that's all you get. And I was like, oh, okay. I realized within 2 years, I didn't want to live at home anymore. And I went and got certified in Pilates. That was my first business outside of show business, and, doing all the internships and going for just learning the business of entertainment. As I was out there networking, I got certified in Pilates in 2007. I started freelancing, and within a year, I was the highest paid, youngest instructor, most fully booked instructor at the studio that I was freelancing at. And I was like, I think I'm onto something. So I had this bridge job of Pilates that wasn't supposed to be the main thing, but I loved it because Pilates was the only thing that allowed me to, it wasn't the only thing, but it was the first exercise that allowed me to start loving my body. And because of growing up with an addict, I didn't model the same addictive behaviors as my dad. I modeled that in the form of alcohol addiction, but I modeled them with bulimia. And so I had this very aggressive and brutal relationship with my body where I would love it one day and then I would hate it the other day. And it all was dependent upon what number showed up for me on the scale. And it was with Pilates that I started to heal my relationship with my body. Within 2 years, I healed myself completely with no psychological or medical intervention from a decade-long battle with bulimia. Have not ever looked back ever since. I in fact like wonder how I even did it for that long, because I hate throwing up now. I'm like, oh my God, that's awful. That sounds just terrible. But from that healing began a cycle of healing, because what I found in coaching and having coached leaders now for 9 years is sometimes when you heal in a specific area of your life, whether it's business, relationships, money, your body, etc., the patterns though of that relationship that you had, whether it's with your body or your spouse or your business or money or something like that, they will transmute into another area typically until those deeper root problems are really addressed. And so I had a problem with deserving. And that was my deep-seated limiting belief, and the belief that I was fundamentally flawed. And I took this story from my body. I took it into relationships, got into some really, really poor choices of relationships. And to the point that we had to have a restraining order on one of my exes. And then, yeah. And he stole $100,000.
What?
I say I chose like really poorly, really poorly.
You know what?
Human, but that's like really poorly. And then I healed that piece of me after my divorce from my ex-husband, where I pulled a Britney at 22, ran off and got married. 9 months in, I'm like, oh my gosh, this was the biggest mistake of my life. And then we subsequently ended the relationship a year later. And then a year after that, I met my now husband, who I've been with for 13 years, best baby daddy, best husband I could have ever asked for. Like, he is phenomenal. But it came from every time I hit this like wall, I had the healing and the beliefs that I needed to fix and shift and pivot and heal and look at. And those experiences externally allowed me to have that mirror in front of me. And I face this as well in business as well. The fear of like the belief around deserving and being fundamentally flawed when I was going through my buyout negotiations with my e-commerce company that happened. When I was 3 weeks before my wedding to my husband, we signed the buyout agreement. I walked down the aisle and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. But all of those pieces, it came from being able to have that deep-seated self-awareness to say, I'm going to look at these things that are showing up in my external world that I don't like, and I'm going to see how I am causing them. And it's a sucky conversation to have with yourself. It's not sexy at all. No one wants to have the ownership and accountability conversation, because self-awareness, when you realize, and I live by one very simple principle of that which is conscious manifests happily, and that which is unconscious manifests unhappily. And with that principle, whenever something unhappy happens in circumstances, whether it's, a dispute with a client or a challenge in business or a challenge with my kids, I look at, how did I cause this? Like, why is this presenting itself for healing? Because the unconscious mind, how our beautiful unconscious minds are designed and worked, is it will only present something when you're ready to heal it. And so the universe kind of gives us these, like, I'm not going to say tests, because I don't like the word test. I don't like to think of it like an exam, but like it's almost like, are you ready to process this yet? It's more like a loving question that comes up in the form of a challenge or a problem. And it's like, are you ready to process this healing thing yet from these belief systems that you have yet to address? Oh, you're not? Oh, you're going to blame other people? Okay, we're just going to repeat the cycle again. Okay. Until you say, okay, I'm going to look at, how did I cause this? How am I the creator of my reality? And then if I am the creator of my reality, what boundaries do I need to set up? What do I need to believe? What do I need to get to step into? What next step of courage? How do I need to think about this problem differently? How can I see this as an opportunity for growth and expansion? And when you start asking yourself different questions on how to challenge the challenge that you're facing, then suddenly you flip yourself in what's called the drama triangle, from being the victim into being the creator of your circumstances. And for the high performers that typically hate being in the victim mindset and will like reject it, sometimes they'll beat themselves up really hard and put themselves in the villain role of the drama triangle. And when they're in that villain role, that's when they did everything. And not only that, but you're taking everybody else's responsibility as well. And I had this with a client of mine who had been divorced from his spouse for 10 years. And he was still blaming himself for where his spouse was financially. And I was like, no, you set her up good. Like, you are only allowed to take 100% of your responsibility. You are not allowed to take 10% of anybody else's responsibility, 20%, 50% of the responsibility that they have for their life. And I think that's where the ownership conversation gets to be for high performers and high achievers is, where does your ownership end? Where does your ownership start? Where do you need to take ownership? But also, where does your ownership end? And what is on the other person and on those external circumstances to take ownership for as well?
Wow. Now, it's more like, we're going down the road of like quantum thinking, whatever that problem may be in one's life, like really sitting down, pen to paper, writing that problem down that's going on, or traumatic experience, whatever it may be, and going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But now the thing is, majority of people don't want to have the conversation, as you said. You emphasized in your TEDx speech, on the word decide, making that choice, But now people don't even want to make that choice of having that conversation to start off with. But we rather sit back, in our comfort zones and complain all the time. Even independent creators, I see it happening all the time. Instead of actually making that decision to take a step forward, write the issue down that I'm having in my life and my creative career right now and dealing with it. But they don't even want to go, they don't even want to meet you halfway. And it's psychological blockages that happen in the career. I mean, they could be a talented author, they can be a talented singer, songwriter, producer, but it's all that psychological barriers that's stopping them from living their best creative career. That's what I see happening more than anything else. And what we attempt to do, like on our end, before we jump into studio, with a vocalist, for example, is first get to know you, build that relationship. Is there anything blocking, further growth for you, for me, for the rest of the team? Is it there? And the thing is, when they come in, we get through those barriers, but then they just end up back to square one. And then I'm like, whoa, okay. I don't know what to do anymore, I can refer you to Kim, you can listen to the podcast. But are you going to listen to it, or are you going to hear it? Are you going to go back and, take action? And, you are yourself as a public speaker. You can speak in front of 100 people, for example, 10%, will go back and actually look at the notes and, okay, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to set up this plan. But the 90% I'm going to be like, okay, whatever, they throw the notes aside. A week down the line, nothing's happened. They haven't decided, to, yes, let me do this.
Yeah.
So how does one, get themselves to like, let me decide to actually do this, ask yourself those questions.
I mean, I think the problem is a lot of people haven't been taught how to make a decision. And simultaneously, we also are struggling with decision fatigue because we have so many decisions and our brains can only process, I think, 80,000 decisions a day. And yet, like, we have decisions that we're making every day, and they're these micro decisions. What do we watch on Netflix? What podcast do I want to listen to? What do I do in all the 50 roles that I play in my business? What do I have to focus on? Do I focus on lead generation? Do I focus on conversion? Do I need to look at my books? So there's a bajillion different decisions that we need to make. So we have decision fatigue as a society. And simultaneously, we haven't been taught to make a decision to make the main thing a priority and look at what are our priorities. Like I was saying earlier, and looking at, is this a decision that I need to reprioritize on? And this, I'll give you an example of a decision that I labored on for a while. I have two. I have two half-written books that I started writing back in 2015 and 2016. And I've always wanted to be a solo best-selling author, always. And yet, for some reason, those books never got done. I had a baby. I had my coaching business started taking off, so I had more clients. So I needed to fulfill client delivery, and this idea of having this book never really came to fruition. And the problem is that in this space of like desiring versus deciding, there's a big difference between desiring and deciding. And through losing my dad, my grandma, and my aunt and 2 childhood friends in 1 year, in 2021, and then moving countries and moving countries and then moving states and packing up 3 estates, which was a beast, while managing being a mom of 2 at the time, and then having my 2 businesses, my coaching business, and then our Communication Queens podcast consulting agency that originally was a done for you podcasting agency that was taking a lot of time launching a new business off the ground. And I had all of this that I was navigating, and I looked at my life and I said, if I died by the end of this year, what would I regret? What would I deeply regret not having done and fulfilled in my life? And the thing that came to me was being a best-selling solo author. Like, I'd already done the TED Talk. I'd already been on, 300 podcasts. I'd already done lots of public speaking, gotten paid to speak, and done big events and things like that. Had my 2 beautiful children. I said I would regret not having a 3rd child. And then I would regret not being a solo best-selling author. And so I said, okay, great. I need to find a way to not reason myself out of this, because our unconscious mind is the goal getter. Our conscious mind is the goal setter. And the problem is our conscious mind will come up with all the reasons, also excuses, also limiting beliefs as to why something can't be done, or how something is too challenging, or how something is like crazy, whether it's society telling us or our caregivers that told us, and it's these voices in the back of our mind from 30 years ago. It doesn't really matter so long as you just can make that decision. And so in order to make a decision, you have to have right thinking of like, how is this going to work? How am I going to make this work? How am I going to make this a non-negotiable? So for me, with getting my book published, Make Every Podcast Want You, I said, I have to write the dang book. And I looked at this again, back then it was a half-written book. It was the 3rd half-written book. And I was like, oh my God, this cannot be. I cannot just like live another 6 months with a half-written book that never comes out and sees the light of day. And so I looked at this and I said, I need to go on a writer's retreat. And I booked myself for 4 days solo, told my husband, said, you and my mom are going to watch the kids for 4 days, and I'm going to finish this book. And I went and I told my team, and I said, I am going off to write this book. Do not bother me. I am finishing this book. And I had to make it a non-negotiable and look at all of the distractions. The second thing was I had to look at how could I talk my way and reason my way out of this book? And what I saw was I was like, oh, okay, if it's not tied to my business, because my business was my best excuse, because, oh, I need to focus on client delivery. I need to support my clients. I need to navigate lead attraction and client generation. My business was always my best excuse, and a damn good one. But I said, okay, how is this playing into the long-term goal of what I have for my businesses and for my brand? And once I connected the task and the activity and the goal to the long-term vision and to my businesses, which were my best excuse, and then looked at, okay, what is a strategy that I need to implement, which was like, I need to just go away and have nothing else to think about to just get this done. And I didn't finish completely in those 4 days. I wrote a lot, but I didn't finish completely. And it was then in that moment that I had to redecide again, like I said in the TED Talk, of like that second place of like forging that emotional muscle of courage of like, can I do this at night while my kids are asleep? I think I can bang out this last chapter in one weekend. And I said, I'm giving myself this deadline. And then I went off and found the editor and did all the things to get the book published. But there were all these blockages along the way. And I consider blockages kind of like labor pains. And it's like, I've had 3 natural labors and all beautiful experiences that have been the best business lessons that are now ingrained in my body. And the biggest lesson is when you are going through those contractions, it's you breathe, you are so fully present, and then you allow for that space to expand. And so once I finished the book, I then said, okay, I'm going to take a moment. I'm now going to look at what else do I get to do? I'm now no longer now passing that off to the editor, like no longer have to think about it. And I'm going to let her do her job until it's that time for me to step in again. So when we are in that space of like that emotional commitment to making the decision, because there's the initial decision that gets made, but then inevitably every time you're going to get an opposition, and each opposition that you face is either strengthening or weakening your resolve and your commitment. And if you really want that goal, it better strengthen it. And it better every time make you search in your body, search in your heart, search in your soul to resolve and say, you know what? I have made this commitment. I want this to succeed. I am fully going for this, and let's freaking go. So you have to, in order to make a successful decision, you need reverence. So there is a reverence that also needs to be present with any decision of, it could be legacy. It could be what you're leaving to your kids. It could be the level of impact. It can be, this is a gift from the divine source, creator, whatever you want to call the thing that connects us all. Like this gift is whether it's your singing voice or your ability to write or your ability to produce or your ability to speak, words of motivation into other people, whatever that gift is, like there has to be reverence for that gift. And then when you infuse right thinking, so right speaking to yourself, right thinking with emotional reverence and courage and regular acts of courage. And it takes courage to put yourself out there. It's scary. I work with a lot of people on visibility. And when you're having those acts of courage and you're taking those actions, that's when you're sending those signals of like, okay, let's birth this baby. Let's get this out into the world. Let's produce this. Let's complete this. Let's get this thing out of me and into the world where it actually can be of service. And that's where the reverence comes in. And I think where our egos get caught up in the decision-making process is when we put all the focus on ourselves and not on how it's going to serve others.
Wow. This is not a public event, but I want to clap. There is absolutely no one in the world that can add in or complement further than what you have just explained, to independent creators that listen to the show. I mean, that's it. Now it's on you. There's nothing more I can say. There's nothing more anyone else can say all around the world, on top of what Kim has just said. There's it. Now it's on you. You go out and you implement. You make the decision, and these are the steps how to follow to make that decision. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Yeah. Okay, on the books. Okay, the books. Do you want to touch on the books?
Yeah.
The name of the books.
So my first book was called.
While we there.
Yeah. So the first book that I wrote was a collaborative book, and it's interesting because there is performative things that are like we talked about of publicity and of showing up and procrastination that may make us feel like we're making progress and that it's a part of our identity, but it's really not. And that's how I felt with my first book, which was a collaborative book. It was great. It hit bestseller. But I spoke it. I didn't get to write it. I didn't get to be in the weeds with it and really massage it and nurture it and love on it and just be in that really beautiful, creative relationship with the creative process. And when you can fall in love with the process, that changes everything. So when that book came out, I was like, yay, great, best-selling author. But I never felt it in my soul like I'd claimed it. Like it was a part of my identity that I'd claimed. And so when Make Every Podcast Want You, when that came out, when that hit bestseller, when not only it hit bestseller, but then it was recommended on like the big giant Times Square billboards as being one of the top books of 2024 to change your life, I was like, I did that. Like that was ingrained in my identity. And Make Every Podcast Want You. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at communicationqueens.com/book or makeeverypodcastwantyou.com. That book is all about how to leverage podcast guesting for greater business visibility, whether you're a creative, whether you're a YouTuber, a podcaster, a recording artist. Podcasts literally are what won the 2024 US elections. Podcasts are the medium of the future. And I think when you can get yourself booked on podcasts, like Kino's, like being able to be here in conversation, there is magic that happens with conversations, like you were saying earlier. Like there is something that comes forth, and that what comes forth from that, when you don't treat it like a one-night stand, is what I say in my book, is like if you treat it like an actual relationship, you don't treat it like, yay, I got a visibility opportunity and bye, I never talk to you again. It's instead, it's like, I'm going to be present and I'm excited to get to know you better. And I'm excited to this is like the first date, like a business date. Yeah. And then we get you get a vibe for each other. You get to feel each other out. And then you're like, okay, I really like you and what you stand for. How can I support you in your work? How can we, collaborate with our networks? How can we really contribute to each other's success? And that's how a rising tide lifts all boats.
That's it. I love how you phrase it, And, I love, because, this podcast, follows the same values and principles. It's not a one-night stand. It's a long-term relationship. You never know where this can go. As big as the world is, it really is small as well.
It is.
You never know where this can go. It's about building relationships, building that community. That's what's going to sustain you as a creator moving into the future, to build an exponential, record label or artistic career. Communities, network, relationships. 100%.
Especially with AI. Especially with AI on the forefront. Because there's already AI influencers. There's already a AI recording artist. I think she's in Japan. But there's if you want to stand out, it's now about your personal brand, and your personal brand. I didn't say this, so I'm not going to, I can't take credit for this, but it's, your business is what people talk about when you're in the room. Your personal brand is what people talk about when you're not. Yeah. And that branding aspect is the community that you're cultivating around your vibe, around your values, around the artistry that you produce, whether it's books or podcasts or music or TV or entertainment, whatever it is. I believe AI can be leveraged to make these things easier. But in this world that we are moving into, the personal brand is going to be essential for every single artist to be able to really leave their fingerprints so that it humanizes it.
Yeah. It's like your work, in this triangle is, your product, but there's also the personal branding, and market the two is different. You need to stand for much more. You could have decided for yourself a long time ago just to be, I tend to tell people there's a difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner. You could have just been a business owner, I'll open up a business here, I'll have my e-commerce here. Then it's I'm making loads of money, it's enough for me, it fulfills me. I don't think it really fulfills, people out there, but they say it does. So anyway, we leave it as that. But then you decided to now, take all that you've learned, you're a second generation entrepreneur, and now you went out into the world, and now you coaching people and you're inspiring people, and that's your brand, and that is so much more bigger and has so much more value than any of your businesses will ever have.
Yeah, that's impact and legacy, and that's exactly. I think to when my kids are 17, 18, 19, and they're online because we're not doing social media until then. But they'll be able to have so much documentation of how their mom thought, and same with my husband too, because he's a public figure as a voice actor, and like they're gonna get to have so much awareness of like, oh my gosh, I got that, habit that she talked about on this podcast from my mom. Like, oh, okay, I can, because while we do our best with our children, like there will be something that you all inevitably leave for their therapist later on, no matter how good of a parent you are. So they'll be able to see, I see how I process emotions like my mom. And maybe that's not really how I need to do it for myself. And so these are beautiful pieces of legacy that we get to leave for that next generation. And I'm all about generational thinking in terms of what you're building. And so it's not just about, and that's why when you surrender the ego to have it be just about you, to having it serve, whether you're a parent or not, whether you even plan on being a parent or not, you are literally teaching and coaching AI, which we are all currently co-parenting, to be a support and a vessel for that next generation. What do you want to be leaving this world with? And that is a question that when you really think of your legacy, that can change everything for how you approach things.
And if you're not asking the question on legacy, then why are you even here? Like, why are you living? Ask yourself that question. Why am I alive? Why did God put me here? What am I supposed to do? So ask yourself.
Even if, it's something that's like, even if it's just being a good parent, like, even if it's just that, like that in and of itself is a sacred act, because you are raising the future. And so even if it's producing an album, like whatever it is for you, that is something that creative output gets to live on beyond you. Like my books are going to live on beyond me. That's such a bananas thinking, way to think. But at the same time, that is so exciting for me, that like, this is a tool for people to use later on in life. Like I think of all the books that shaped me, and, some of the authors have passed now, like Viktor Frankl and just Stephen Covey, and like these amazing authors that have just changed my life. And they've been gone for a while. And yet these entities of what they're created still get to live on. And that's why, like, if you have that something in you that you want to create and release, like, do the world a favor and let them hear your voice.
100%. I always say, as a creative, you have a responsibility to humanity, whether you know it yet or not. Your work, whether it be music, whether it be a book, needs to impact lives. That's the deeper meaning. And people want that emotional relationship with their creator these days. It's not about putting, I'm going to reference music as an example, putting the hot track out there talking about, or rapping about cars you don't really have, houses you really don't have, money you don't even have. People don't want that anymore. You need to look for, in the 7 billion people in the world, you need to look for your audience that has or shared the same story as you. Could be growing up, could be what you're currently going through in your life now, and focus on that, because your work is going to impact their life and make a future with prosperity and abundance for them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I could go on all day, Kino, about how
exactly.
the faux like luxury and the faux, look at my Lamborghini and like all the things that you don't have. People right now are starving for authenticity and the permission to fully authentically express where they're at right now. I was in a group of high 6 and 7 figure business owners, and just being able to sit in that room and have the permission 6 months ago to say, we're going through some stuff right now. I had to let go of 85% of my team. We were going through a massive pivot from a done for you agency to a done with you consulting. And it was painful and it was hard and it sucked. And I've come out with several podcasts on it with my both my Crown Yourself podcast and the Communication Queen podcast. And I can't tell you how many people have said, like, thank you, because what you're doing is like sharing the realness of what's going on, not like, look at my giant, 100K months and all these things, which I'm like, that's great. But if you have 100K month, but your, OpEx and your operational expenses is 120K, you ain't making anything. Like that's nothing to brag about. And so I think that we need to look at, and society in general, from artists to creatives to coaches to entrepreneurs, like we are just sick of the illusion. I think we've had enough of that. We got a lot of that in like 2019, 2020 era. And it's like, the beautiful thing about COVID is that for many people, it's stripped away the illusion of, this is my business box, and this is my career box, and this is my home life. And it brought a lot of things to light as far as like, here's the integration of life. Like we are not, just a recording artist. We are not just a parent. We are multifaceted and multidimensional, and we need to honor all of the holistic being that is our beingness beyond just the roles that we're fitting ourselves into.
Yeah. I mean, it was a period, even though it was, sad period for many years.
Sad and challenging. Yeah.
But it was also like, a season of opportunity. Like you could really sit back, and for me personally, sit back, reflect on one's life, and really start something that you really wanted to get going, but you didn't have the time to, because as you said, you were stuck in the illusion. And if you were married, you could see past the illusion, during the COVID period. This is why I said at the start, it's good to get in these conversations with like-minded people, so much positivity in that, for one's health. You could see past the illusion, then you started it. I mean, this podcast, I started during the COVID period. I would have never thought about starting a podcast, before that. I started during the COVID period, and I remained consistent with it alone, for 3 years. And then boom, started to get recognition, it started to get views, this person reached out to me, and that started now, it started to go down the path that I visioned it to go down, So, I mean, and the thing is,
I love that.
Yeah. And even though, okay, if you listen to what I just said now as a listener, you're thinking, okay, no, I missed out on something. No, you never. We're still in that period of uncertainty. We're still in that period of opportunity. Start it. You can do it now. Start today. Get going. Not 10 years from now, I'll still be thinking, oh, no, I should have started it, but I never. And you're living full of regret. But like on your book, is your book available on Kindle?
It is. Yeah, you can get it on Kindle.
I am definitely going to get a copy of it. And I suggest all creators also get a copy of it. Like once a week, I interview an author. It's every Monday. Now, of course, even though I love, the work that these authors are pushing out, fantasy and science fiction, whatever it may be, I can't go and say, okay, I'm going to purchase all the books just because, you've been on the class. That's to fit, what I do with my life as well. And does it interest me that way? But I am definitely going to get a copy of the book because I feel, that is going to impact my life and it's going to bring me more growth. So I suggest to creators, to get a copy as well. It's going to be beneficial for you. As you said, podcast is like the future, the channel. You need to be on as much podcast as you want, to get that visibility for yourself, to get different audiences and different cultures and religions and countries to get to know you, because you never know where your audience is going to be.
And you have, conversations create conversions, whether that's converting into downloads for your album, or that's converting into podcast listens, or that's converting into people buying your book, or, and I am such an advocate because one of the things that I've seen entering into the authorship community and the self-publishing world, so many authors, like the minimum amount of books that most people sell, or the maximum amount of books that most people sell per individual author is about 300. And that breaks my heart when you look at how much time, energy, effort, love, care, and money goes into the editing, the creation, all of this putting this goodness out into the world. And so if I can help creators, and if my book can help creators get more visibility and leverage and be able to showcase the beauty of their work that they do, whether it's their books or their or their podcasts or their shows or their albums. Like that is what I wrote the book for, is so that you can really stand out on shows and connect with those ideal audience members. Like just right here, like this is a demonstration, very meta, of like the book works because Kino just said he's going to buy my book.
Yeah. 100%. It doesn't matter if it's one person or 100 people. They buy it off one show. It's one extra added to the list and to my growth for you, you know? That's
And
it.
you never know where that's going to take you.
Exactly.
Like I've had people hop on sales calls with me and they literally will show me, like, they're like, in your book on page 17, you said to do this in a pitch. And like, I'm like, all right, yeah. And your authorship, your creativity. And I've had people hop on calls with me and then start crying because they met me and it touched their lives in such a way. I'm like, this is bananas and beautiful at the same time. It's like, there's magic when you can honor the creativity that you have within you and that your work touches lives. I mean, and I had this experience with my first film that I co-wrote, that I talk about in the book. It was called Bro. It starred Danny Trejo. It was all about freestyle motocross. I didn't know anything about freestyle motocross. I just had to research that. That was what YouTube was for. But learning about this, the whole story followed a very simple premise of, it was a boy who got caught up in trying to belong to the cool crowd. And he found out that, the high flying, hard partying world of freestyle motocross might not be his crowd. But he gets into some trouble. He does some things that he's not proud of. And then he reinvents his life and realizes the difference between wanting to fit in and wanting to belong. And that's a story that every human understands, whether you've gone so far as like being in freestyle motocross, or being, going off and doing some things that maybe you shouldn't be doing. Or you've just like tried to be popular in high school. Like we all understand on a human level the story of belonging and the desire to belong. And when I wrote that film, and I wrote it with the director, Nick Parada, he's amazing. And at the premiere, I had a friend bring a friend who was struggling with some things. Her son, she brought her son and she thought he would enjoy it because he was in a motocross. And 2 weeks later, my friend tells me, she goes, your film changed his life. And I was like, what? Like that, my film? Like, really? How? And because there's a lot of like stuff in it, but like, she said, yeah, he was going down that road. He was starting to deal drugs. He was doing a ton of partying. And she goes, he saw that film. He saw where it led and he changed his life. And I was like, oh. And I now know for a fact that film, just being a part of that film, it changed 4 people's lives so far, that I know of. 1 was that kid. 2 was one of the actors whose literal life after the film mirrored the film. In fact, one of the stories that he shared when we were on the press tour was that he was at the same jail that we showcase. Like that's the jail that he went to. And so it changed his life. He got sober. It changed this kid that I met. He was super cool, in the children's hospital. I met him and he was this 8-year-old kid with a brain tumor. And I was doing a beauty pageant at the time for UNESCO. And I met this kid and he was like bragging about his 2 girlfriends and he loved riding motocross. And I was like, oh, I wrote a film about that. And his mom goes, oh, that's my favorite movie. And I was like, what? And so I said, let me see if I can, reach out to some connections, because I would never have motocross connections other than this film. And I said, let me see if I can, get him connected. He ended up getting like bike and gear and stuff. And his mom was like, yeah, he already has a brain tumor. Like, what am I concerned about? Like him fulfilling his passion. So that it changed his life. And then it changed my own life. Like it changed my life because it allowed me that film. I posted in a film group that I was a part of. And I went out to celebrate when it got distribution with Lionsgate with one of the post-production sound people who happened to be a friend of my husband's. And that was the night that I met my husband. And so that film, it changed 4 people's lives thus far. And it's just the power of creativity. And you never know where one of your creative projects will take you.
Yeah. like sometimes we just, don't appreciate like the small things in life, because it all just leads to the bigger things. Like you can have this vision for your life, no matter what it may be, but you have to go through these steps first. And at times you're not going to understand why you're going through this, or why you have to go there, or why, deep inside your instinct is saying to push this project out, but it's leading to that vision that you
Yeah.
wanted. And you just have to trust in that process. You have to trust in the universe. You have to trust in God, and just go with it. Doesn't have to make sense, in that moment when it's happening. But as you said, look where it's led you and 4 other people,
Yeah.
and who knows how many more people out there.
Yeah.
Just that you
I
don't
mean,
know. Kim, I
those are
mean,
the
like,
4 that I know of.
my
Like,
brain was,
but you never know.
yeah,
And so,
that you know of.
whatever creative
You know,
project you have
you
within
just never
you, like,
know.
please release it for the world.
Exactly. Don't overthink it. If you are 80% sure, yes, I want to push it out, go with it. Don't hold it and save it. It's in the vault. I'm going to wait for the perfect. There is no perfect moment or perfect time.
Mhm.
Follow your heart. Like this conversation, like I wrote these 3 points down, today, because my brain was like foggy, like why you wanted to come on the podcast, because you wanted to, tell people how to navigate the entertainment industry, build publishing power outside the system, use your story to, share or build your brand, but like you've nailed it, like I don't even have to say, okay, your thoughts on this point, because you've nailed it throughout this 1 hour conversation. This is the core of it all, the foundation of it all, this is the starting point. This is what you shared
Mhm.
with creatives there. We're going to listen to this, and I appreciate that. Like even I'm enlightened about this,
I'm excited to
I
see what
mean,
you create.
yeah, I mean, as you know, I don't regret making the decision to show up,
Hmm.
even though I've got flu, I don't regret that decision, because I never forced myself to be here. Like, I knew this was the right thing for me to do, to show up. I knew this was going to be like great conversation that's going to uplift my spirits as well,
Oh,
So if I
I'm
can
so
get
glad you
uplifted,
did. I'm so glad you
yeah.
did. I mean, and what a testimony for possibility and for like showing up. I watched a documentary about J Lo, and she was like, "Oh, I always show up, even when she's like deathly sick." And
Yeah.
it's very much that line in show business of like the show must go on. You show up regardless, and you serve your audience. And you show
Yeah.
up and you honor the fact that you have that space. So I'm so honored that you would share this space with me and that you would show up even when you're not feeling good.
Thank you as well for showing up.
Of
It works
course.
both ways. It works both ways. And the thing is, it shows the importance of having the right people like in your life. I mean, the importance of showing up, something I learned a long time ago with one of my music coaches who's also in the States. And, he emphasized the importance of showing up. And once he had the flu, like terrible, like when you had to do this live feed, you could see like this guy is sick, But it's like 4:30 in the morning, Los Angeles time. So of course now it's a bit later on in South Africa when he had this interview, and then he went live on Instagram, and I clicked on. And as it went live, with whoever was going, you could see like just like got up, and then he just went in that state of flow, and you could not tell. But he said, I show up, I show up where I need to be. If it's like serious, like bed sick and I can't move, it's a different story. But I mean, don't use that as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say don't rest when you're sick, but I mean,
Yes. Rest when you need to, and
yeah,
make sure you're that's where discernment comes into play of like making sure that you're not overcommitting yourself to where you're burning yourself out, but so that you can show up to all the commitments that you show up to, that you agree to, because
yeah.
keeping
I
your
guess,
commitment and showing up, that's what builds your self-integrity and your self-worth.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if I had the flu and I still did like 100 stuff today, you know, maybe okay, I was forcing myself to show up on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but being on the podcast with awesome individuals each and every single day is like my happy place as well. So I know I prioritize it, So the fact that I rested the whole day, and showed up, was no force behind it, I gave myself enough time to rest, and then I still came on and did the best I could possibly do. But I mean, you were so great. You were so authentic. You were so real. Smiles and laughs, and it just made it all enjoyable.
I very much enjoyed
So
our
Kim, thank you
conversation as
so much.
well. Thank you so much.
And just no, it's a pleasure. And to conclude, where can people find you online?
So if you love podcasts and you want to learn more about leveraging podcasts for your creative projects, you can listen to the Communication Queen podcast. And we are always looking for guests for that because I do some coaching on how to better share your story. So that's a benefit that some of our guests get. And then if you love this conversation, you're like, ooh, I'd love some more like leadership and guidance on how to really build and scale my empire and learn some of these unconscious principles like NLP and how to work with my subconscious so I don't self-sabotage and get in my own way and still have the power and the vigor and the courage to show up, then go ahead and listen to the Crown Yourself podcast. And of course, lastly, go to Amazon or go to makeeverypodcastwantyou.com and grab the book, Make Every Podcast Want You, and learn how to leverage podcasts to build beautiful, amazing relationships like the one that Kino and I just built. I'm so excited to get to know him beyond the scope of this episode. So this is exactly like it's a testament to the fact that the strategy works and what I wrote in my book. It's just about building relationships and showing up to the commitments that you make. So you can go to makeeverypodcastwantyou.com or go to Amazon and grab the book there.
Yes, that's it. And also, please, I just want to add, please go and check out Kim's TEDx presentation. TEDx is all about short presentation. It's under 18 minutes, but it is impactful. It's emotional. I mean, I loved it. I enjoyed it, Not in a happy way because it was also like sad, emotional as well. But thank you for going on to such stages. Like you should feel so proud of yourself. Like you're so authentic, Thank
you.
Like, I mean, you could feel like the words was matching the emotion. It wasn't fake, and that's your brand. That's your brand once again. And I absolutely adore it.
Thank you. I really received that. That TED Talk was a big experience for me. So I'm so glad that it's touching so many people's lives. And like, it is truly an honor to be able to just have had that stage. It's called, and for those, if you want to look it up, it's called Becoming a Warrior for Possibility. Yes,
please look it up. I will also include that link also in the description.
Cool.
But Kim, thank you so much. Thank you. This was this is up my week, week done.
Week is done.
Week is done. It's like, so I watch a lot of football. I'm a Liverpool FC fan. It's like how, so they've won, the league in Europe now, or in England at least, and there's still 4 games left. That's how I see my week. There's still shows I have to do this week, but this like sums it up, like won the league for this week,
I love it. I love it.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, you as well. I mean, the fact that you are in the top 95% of podcasters because you have stuck with it, you have kept your commitment, and you've kept showing up. Like that is just a testament to who you are and your character. And I'm excited. I now just want to come visit you in South Africa because it's on my list to go run there anyways. So my mentor lives down there too.
Okay, that's cool. It's good. Look at the world, eh? Look at the world.
Yeah, it's just a small
plane ride. The US, your mentors are here. Wow. Yeah, it's like one big country, That's all it is.
Yeah. It's such a small, like you said, Kino, it is a small world, and it gets smaller the more you connect with people who are doing big things in this world. So because 100%. And who live with integrity and who show up for their commitments. So it's like I'm so glad to have met you. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of your day. I know it's going to be busy and hectic, but keep smiling. Have fun. All right, thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.